In today's video, I want to share with you my VR to Bronia K, and it is with the hashtag Taking It Back to Tarot. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope that you're really well and looking after yourselves. So in today's video I want to do a VR to Bronia K with the hashtag Taking It Back to Tarot. This was such an inspiring video that Bronia made several weeks ago, potentially a couple of months ago now. I'm very late to responding to VRs and hashtags because of my move and everything being kind of chaotic. I had a cold this week as well, so my voice is kind of nasally at the moment. I still have not fully recovered from losing my voice like 4 weeks ago, so I'm quite like deep as well at the moment. I don't know if you can notice the difference in my voice. I can. Anyway, rambling aside, I love Bronia's channel. I love chatting to Bronia. I think that Bronia and I actually have similar kinds of experiences with the tarot and with magic, and I really do relate to their experiences. So it's really nice to be able to make this VR. I just love watching Bronia's channel. There's a wealth of knowledge and there's so much packed into her videos. So if you haven't actually been to Bronia's channel, definitely do check her out. She's fantastic. So there are 4 prompts to this hashtag, and I haven't really prepared anything. I haven't really thought about anything other than having watched other VRs to the hashtag, and obviously I've watched Bronia's a couple of times. I just sort of have an idea that I will kind of just talk rambly. So it's just going to be free and very casual. So we'll get started. The first prompt is, what got you into tarot? And honestly, I would say witchcraft, because I first came to the craft when I was about 11, and it was because I saw the craft itself. As a young girl at a sleepover, I saw the craft. I think I saw Practical Magic soon after or just before. I can't remember which one came first, probably the craft. But I was fascinated, and I remember I was suddenly like, oh, I didn't know this was a thing beyond sort of fairy tale witchcraft, but this sort of spoke to something that was like inside me that I'd already sort of known was inside me, this magic. Because I used to create little spells with like dirt and sticks and stuff, but I also would create little spells in my head and like incantations in my head, but I'd also use my fingers and point, and I'd always get little wands at pantomimes, and it would always be a big thing for me working magic, and I liked to pretend it was real. I remember my sister had one of those pointy things with the ribbons on them, and I think that they were for like twirling, something like that, but I used to like pretend that that was magic, and so I thought it was real magic for a time, and then I thought it wasn't real, and then seeing the craft I was like, oh hang on, this is real. And I knew that some of it wasn't real, but there was like an essence there, and I thought, okay, well, this opens up doors. And so I started to read what I could get my hands on, which was very little, to be honest with you. I went to some little witchy shops. My mum bought me crystals and things. She'd actually already bought me crystals, and there was a witchy shop and she'd buy me incense, and I'd look at the tarot decks and I'd look at the books. I'd pore over the books, and eventually I picked up my first witchy book, which was Witching by Fiona Horn, and I loved that book. I just remember being fascinated by everything to do with witchcraft, and I sort of practiced throughout my teens on and off, and I remember my parents thought it was a phase, and some of my friends thought it was really cool, and some of my friends thought it was weird, and then I just decided to stop talking about it because that was easier. But again, I think there's so many things I wish I'd have known that I know now back then, but you know, hindsight is a wonderful thing, and that is something I'd really love to do a video on as well, the things that I wish I'd known coming into the craft. But I think when you are that small, you have a lot to learn anyway, so I probably would have made the same mistakes over and over again anyway. But I think I knew about tarot because of witchcraft and reading witchcraft books, but it was only when I was about 17 and I went into a secondhand bookshop and I was looking for witchcraft books, and I saw a book on tarot, and I thought, well, I don't have a tarot deck, but I'd love to learn and I'd love to try this because I was fascinated by it. So I bought that book, and I still can't remember what book that is. I've actually picked up like 4 or 5 different books that I think it could have been and read them all, and I still can't remember what book it was. How bad is that? But it was probably one of them. But I don't know if I'll ever remember, and I didn't write it down, and that original book, it left my collection for reasons I'll go into, I guess, later, and you may already know if you've watched previous videos of mine, but basically that was when I started to learn tarot. I read the whole book and I was fascinated, and then I got a deck and I started playing with it and I loved it. I resonated with the images. It was a Rider-Waite-Smith deck. I didn't state that, but yeah, Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And I just fell in love, and then that's when everything kind of went a little bit awry, because I started to experience anxiety, and I was on a gap year then, and my parents had moved house, so there was quite a bit of upheaval, and I went to a Baptist church because I always felt very spiritual, and as I'd grown up in a Church of England church, I didn't feel very close to that divinity in that church, and I was curious to feel close to a divinity. So I went to the Baptist church with my mother and found that I loved the feeling of being close to a deity, and I learnt more and more about Jesus and got closer. But then it became very clear that the people I was surrounding myself with were very fundamentalist, really, and it became very difficult, and there were a lot of things that sort of became shut off for me, and I felt very sinful, and the anxiety kind of like persisted. And in the end I thought, you know, well, I can't continue where I am in my life right now if I've got this stuff, because it just feels like I'm lying to other people, and I definitely cared what other people thought too much. I was afraid of someone finding out and thinking that I was evil, because that's what they would have probably said or thought, which is really sad. And I definitely was a sponge. I listened too much to other people, and it's something that I'm kind of sad about, because I definitely missed out on a few years, a few really, really good years of learning and growing and developing and understanding in that point of my life. You know, I think I could have learned so much more and developed so much more and understood so much more at that age than starting so young and practicing through my teens and then stopping. So I ended up just removing those books from my collection and the tarot deck that I had, and I was very, very sad about that. But I obviously have a copy of that deck now, and I have a copy of all the books that I had at that point as well, so I've sort of gone full circle, and it's much better for me. So then it was later on in life, after having a period of time working in London, being bullied at work, commuting for like up to 4 hours a day on the train to and from work, and feeling so like beaten down and going through depression, anxiety, etc. And I didn't have space in my head for magic, but I remember I'd go into secondhand bookshops because I always loved books. I always loved secondhand bookshops. And so then seeing witchy books, magic books in a secondhand bookshop again, it sort of reminded me of who I really was inside, and I was triggered by that. I think definitely like felt very fearful of that, and again pushed it away. And then it was after I left working from London, then my husband and I moved to Devon, and I was pregnant, and then things started to happen again magically for me, and I started to experience the same kinds of things that I used to, and feel differently and feel not afraid of experiencing those things. And you know what, I just decided, you know, this is who I am. I'm not going to let anyone else stop me from being who I am. So I went back onto the path and started reading again, started playing with tarot again. Then I discovered YouTube a few years ago and started watching YouTube videos and fell into TarotTube. And you know, fast forward to now, I feel much more myself, but I also feel the trauma from like repressing who I am for so long, and it reverberates in different ways in my body, and it comes out in different, it manifests in different ways, and it has relevance in different areas of my life to do with my body image, the way I see myself, you know, shame and guilt around being a sexual person, which I think I've pretty much released now. I think I'm pretty okay with stating very publicly that I feel like a very sexual person, and I don't feel too inhibited anymore to just be myself and celebrate that. You know, I find that really beautiful, and I really stepped into that divine feminine again, especially, you know, becoming pregnant and going through a pregnancy twice, having 2 children, going through that whole process and seeing your body as strong and divine, and doing this process in my early 20s as well before I had children. When I worked in London, I was severely mistreating my body in terms of, you know, under eating, over exercising. These are things that I did to myself to punish myself and to disappear as well. I made myself smaller, and physically to try to make myself smaller, to not be here, not be physical. It hurts actually deeply. You know, the memories of it hurt very deeply, but I am so proud of myself, because I remember at the time in my early 20s going through all of this and talking to my now husband, who was my partner, and saying, you know, I don't want to be this mum that, you know, can't bake with her children and enjoy those things and live life to the fullest and you know, eat chips and not feel like it's wrong for me to do that, not feel this heaviness that I feel. And I cried and cried and cried, and I just wanted that so much for myself. And it was incredible what becoming pregnant did to my body, because I felt so nauseous when I was pregnant, and the only thing that made me feel better was eating. I was so determined to eat everything that my body needed, that my baby needed, that I was growing, that I didn't care. I just decided that this was way more important, and I pushed myself through. I think I did that because I knew I wanted that more than hanging on to something that was a defense mechanism, something that I thought was supporting me, that wasn't supporting me at all and was actually hurting me very much. And I think that going through that process and having children, it helped me to step into my divine feminine. It helped me to release these hang-ups I have about my body and to accept myself as a sexual person and a spiritual person and a divine person and, you know, a good person and a loving person and a compassionate person and a caring person, and step into all of those things and know that what I am is good and that there's no evil in that. And I think there's a lot of that stuff that comes from this Christian indoctrination, and this is in no way a comment on Christians in general and the church, but there is a common theme, I think, especially within our community. There are people in our community who do speak to this, the trauma of these kinds of religions and being repressed for very long, and I do feel this is very relevant for me. I've also had questions in the community about working with Jesus as well, because that is something that I still do. And I think it's because I never saw Jesus as that. I saw it as the people who were doing that, who were interpreting things in that way and taking it to that place. You know, I didn't see it, and I never got that when I was in prayer or when I was in a sort of sacred space, or whenever I'd call on Jesus and ask the Holy Spirit to come to me. It felt more like a spiritual experience. I feel more spiritually connected in my bed at home praying than I did in church. You know, I never felt safe in that church. So that was food for thought as well, and I think that's really the answer that I can give at this point. And knowing that this video, knowing that this topic really isn't just about that, this is supposed to be about tarot, and I've waffled on for a long time about the other side of my spirituality, but I can speak to that more, and if anyone's got any questions, please leave it below. Obviously, as well, I'm talking about some tricky things, and so I will leave a disclaimer at the start of the video, but I also would like to say that if any of this doesn't resonate for you, that's absolutely fine, but please do respect that this is my experience, and, you know, I'm sharing this on my channel. This is my experience, my opinion. If you don't like it, you're absolutely free to leave and to not watch my channel, but this is my experience, this is my opinion, and I'm going to be very honest and vocal about that, and I'm not going to apologise for it. I don't mean this to be harmful to any group or person at all. I have so much respect for people who find a spiritual connection wherever it be. I think my problem is when people force others or repress others or tell people that they're evil, basically, or anything around that kind of area. You know, I find that deeply troubling. So that's why, you know, I spoke to these topics. But absolutely do leave me any questions about that in the comments box below. I can do another video if that's something that's of interest. But moving back to the prompts. So that's pretty much the long and the short of my spiritual journey, like up to now, like where I got, and a little bit going back and forward, hopping around. And that's how I got into tarot when I was 17, but it started when I was 11, that catalyst. How did you learn tarot? I read a book. I read a book and then I reread it and I studied it, and then I looked at the cards and I studied each card with the book. So I literally memorized the meanings, which was not the best way to do it. I think if I was learning tarot now, I would not do it that way. I would start reading tarot straight away. But back then I did feel quite inhibited to start reading, and I thought that if you were reading tarot, you had to know what the cards meant. So I spent a lot of time studying before I actually even read tarot at all, and I didn't read for anyone else either, which is something that I would definitely advocate now. Knowing now what I know, again, hindsight is an amazing thing. So I learned kind of in a backwards way, I think, in a way I would not encourage others to learn, but that is how I learned. And coming back to it again years later, you know, after being in London in my early 20s and just experiencing all of that pain and trauma, and then coming out of it and experiencing what I experienced as a new mum and everything, like relearning tarot in that part of my life has been a really magical process, because also I feel like learning tarot, it never stops. So I would never sit here and say I think I know it all. I don't think anyone would or should, and I will continue reading tarot books and enjoying tarot books and loving them. And I think that there's always more to learn. Like, I love a guidebook to learn from, I love a new deck to learn from, the art to learn from, you know, watching other creators on YouTube to learn from. There's so much wisdom out there and knowledge, and I learn from everyone who speaks about tarot and uses tarot, who I will connect with. I feel like it's a deeply humbling kind of process to be part of, and I love learning. That's something I discovered about myself when I was at university. You know, I would spend hours in the university library, it was a lot like Hogwarts, to be honest, because it was this listed building, this huge building, and the library was just epic. It was just incredible, you know, it's like so beautiful. So I would just spend hours in that library, and I knew how much I loved studying. So that's something I know about myself, and that's one of the reasons why I know that I'm very happy to say I will forever be a tarot student. I will continue to learn. I will definitely experience tutelage from all areas of my tarot life, I think. What did you love about it? So when I first started learning tarot, I think in my head, the only ideas I had of it really were the depictions in movies, and the one that springs to mind the most was probably in Now and Then. They go to see like a psychic tarot reader, and I remember I think they see the Ten of Swords, I think. I haven't seen that movie in years, so I can't exactly remember. I'm guessing it was, but the tarot reader talks about death, which is obviously not that card, unless she actually does pull death. I don't know. I need to rewatch that now. But Now and Then was a massive ding for me. I remember that. I liked it because the imagery spoke to me, like it was striking, and the archetypes, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel that archetype, and it resonated. And then it resonated again when I was at university and learning about the archetypes and, you know, the collective unconscious and Carl Jung and all of those philosophical schools of thought and paradigms, and I loved putting it all together, and I found it fascinating, and I loved it because I think I love the art the most. I love Pixie's art, and I still say that I don't think it's the most spectacular art. It's not like realistic art, it's not the most beautiful, it's not like the most opulent or stunning or attractive art, but I love it so much, and I just feel like a deep resonance from within, and I think it feels sort of like ancestral and very sacred, do you know what I mean? So I think there was just a bond with me and the tarot from the very beginning, and the only reason that it left my life was because I was not ready to step into my authenticity and to be fully empowered in myself and my witchhood and my magic, and that is something I'm so grateful that I have been able to do in, you know, still my younger years of my life, hopefully, touch wood, to be able to experience the joys of being in that place, and to be able to own that, you know, that I love that. I think I've kind of answered this one already. What did you struggle with? I really struggled with sin, the concept of sin, and I hate that word so much. I hate saying it. It's just, it doesn't make me feel good to say it. There was a lot of shame I felt that was absorbed by me, that I felt came from the church I was part of, and that is not, again, Christianity. That is this church and several of the people that were there, and some of the memories I have of those people aren't great, and you know, it's an experience I don't actually regret. I regret removing my books and my tarot decks from my collection. I do regret that. That makes me feel sad. But I don't regret going to that church, because I did build a connection with Jesus, and that I still cherish, and it is something I do struggle with to be able to assimilate my practice with, but I managed to do it because I still tap into both on the daily, and I work with Psalms as well. My grandmother was a very strong Christian. She was a beautiful person, and actually was passed her common book of prayers. After she passed, it was with her, and my family gave it to me, and I'm so honoured and grateful for that. Like, I love it. I have it on my altar at all times, and I work with it, and you know, I pray to God, as well as a bigger part of a whole that's more in a spiritual realm for me. I think I would probably say I could be classed as a Christian witch, but I also recognise that being a witch, I fall under the umbrella of pagan. So I know this is debated as well. I know there's people on both sides. I kind of agree with both, and that might be contentious, might ruffle some feathers there. But, you know, I don't think I've got all the answers, and I really don't claim to. I'm still trying to make sense of it myself. So I just do what I do, and it feels good. I work with the Morrigan, I work with Jesus, and I have had some experiences with other deities, but I've never really worked with other deities actively. And, you know, I'm really, really proud of where I am as well. But I have struggled with the shame from coming from a Christian background, and some of my experiences as well, not just in that church, but in the community, the Christian community in general. And actually, I went to a summer camp in Rhode Island and worked there as a young person, as a counsellor, a camp counsellor. And I was shamed on a number of occasions. Not because I did anything wrong, but just because of the way I looked, and I was told I wasn't allowed to wear the same thing as some of the other counsellors who were also female and also similar age or older. I found that very, very difficult. The boys, the men were allowed to wear what they wanted to wear. It felt ridiculous as well because it was actually swimsuit, and I had to wear it to do my job because I had to go into the river with the children, with other counsellors, with other groups at the same time. You know, we'd all go in and they wouldn't let me wear a bathing suit. I had to wear shorts, really long shorts, like down to my knees, and a t-shirt over a swimming costume, whereas other people were allowed to just wear their bathing suits. I wasn't. I was told I wasn't allowed to. And that did come after as well. I was working with someone who I was friends with, and they went and told management that they found me attractive and that I was tempting them. I wasn't doing anything because that person was just my friend, but I guess they felt attracted to me, and that in their minds meant that I was tempting him, or he was tempted by me or something. So they then made sure that I was not at all allowed to be seen in any kind of reasonable way. So I found that really disturbing. And I never thought I'd even speak about that here. It's just funny, you know, I struggle with that. And I still struggle with the misconceptions, but you know what, I care a lot less now. I care a lot less because I know what it means to me, I know what it's done for me, and I know what I value, I know what I cherish. And I have a group of people who love me, I have family who love me, I have friends who love me. I'm not interested in wasting time with people who don't care for me or like me. You know, if someone doesn't like me and they want to pretend, I really have no interest in wasting my time with people like that, because I've been hurt a lot in my life by people like that. So for me, I care a lot less about that. I still care that people like me, of course. Who doesn't? I think that's a human thing. But I used to let that inhibit me and stop me from doing things that I wanted to do, whereas now I don't. So I think I struggle less with that now. Now I think I struggle with all the decks I want to buy and not having enough space, and also feeling that deck overwhelm, and then feeling like I shouldn't be contributing to this material, capitalist kind of like must have all the decks kind of monster that we're talking about in the community. And I love having tarot decks, and I don't think there's anything wrong with anyone having a collection of 1 or 500, you know, whatever is good for you, whatever feels good for you, as long as for you, you know that you're happy and you can afford that and you're comfortable with that. Also, you know, even if you're not, that's none of my business, and I would never judge anyone for that either. Like, I want people to enjoy tarot and be happy with tarot, and yeah, love it like I do, and that's all I'd ever want, you know. And I would never put my judgments on other people. Like, I would try not to anyway. If, you know, it's a very human thing to naturally judge. So if I notice that coming up, you know, that's kind of shadow work for me, and I know that, I recognize that. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things that I've struggled with over the years to do with tarot and to do with spirituality and magic and witchcraft, and now I think I still struggle, but it's different, and I feel liberated. I feel more liberated. I feel more empowered. I feel more in my body. I feel more embodied. I feel sexual and sensual, and I feel divine. I feel like a child of God now, and not just an Abrahamic God, not just a Christian God, not just any religion. Like, I feel like the divine holds me, and it's good for me, and I don't have answers. You know, if I have in any way upset anyone, then I'm really, really sorry. That's not my intention at all, and I would hope that's not the case. But I am just a person who's talking about their experiences and what I feel and what I believe, and I hope that that is okay, and that maybe it resonates with some people, and if it does, that's amazing. And let me know in the comments box. I'd love to continue this conversation, and let me know as well if you've got any questions for me around any of my struggles with tarot or with spirituality, witchcraft, magic, coming from a Christian background, all of those things. And I know I have gone off on other tangents here, not just about tarot, but it's all connected for me. So it's not just going to be talking about cards, because my journey with tarot was connected to witchcraft, it was connected to Christianity, it was connected to a spiritual wholeness that I've been searching for, and I'm still, you know, on a journey towards and with and experiencing with, you know, experiencing the divine. And so I've waffled so much. I really, really hope that some of this was of interest or of value or thought-provoking in any way. As I said again, I would never ever wish to offend or be judgmental about any person or group, so I do extend my apologies if any of that was taken in the wrong way. But again, I'm just one person sharing her experiences, and I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please do like the video, leave me a comment below if you'd like to, share it with anyone who you think would be interested in this, who maybe had a similar experience or just who loves tarot. And if you're new here and you'd like to see more from me along the lines of tarot, witchcraft, magic, spirituality, occult and other related topics, then please do think about subscribing. While subscribing, don't forget to hit that little bell notification, because that's how YouTube is going to let you know when I create and upload videos just like this. Thank you again for joining me. Thank you so much to Bronia for this fantastic, thought-provoking, beautiful hashtag. I absolutely love your channel. You're gorgeous. Mwah. And thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, stay well and safe, and I look forward to seeing you again in another video really soon. Bye.